are back. You are listening to the #1 talk business show in all of North Carolina. Let me prove it to you. This is News Talk WSIC 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, 1400 AM. I am Joe Vagnone. This is Local Biz Now. And if it's Friday morning, your business matters. It will be if it's Monday afternoon, your business matters, because after 10 and a half years being here at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday, my show is moving till Mondays at 4 o'clock, and we hope you'll join us for that. And I'm here with my co-host, Ben McDonald. He is the founder and managing partner of Destination Wealth Advisors. He also has a podcast called Anything But Typical. Ben, thank you for being here, buddy.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here for the last Friday morning.
That's right. That's right. And to celebrate the last Friday morning, I'm holding up a book that is phenomenal. Those of you know I like reading business books. I was watching Fox News, and the interview with this author showed up, and I like to pick on people when I watch them interview. And as this dude was talking, I was thinking, he's right. He's right. Yeah. He got it.
Was it frustrating not finding things to pick on?
That's right. So I immediately went out and bought his book, and after I read it, I asked Julie to beg him to be on the show. This is after months of begging. He has done thousands of interviews. He wrote the book Blue Collar Cash. Ken Rusk. Ken, am I saying that correctly? Rusk?
Yes, sir, you are.
Ken, thank you so much. Blue Collar Cash is phenomenal. You wrote what all of us small business people that did not go to college are thinking, right? You handed us a blueprint on how to talk to our children that do not want to go to college. Thank you, my friend, for sitting down with us. I really do appreciate it.
No, you know what? I appreciate you being here, or me being here. It's a great message. It's something that we need to put out there. We're that whole side of the equation is not getting heard. So it was I feel like it was my duty to put it out.
Okay, but here's my question, right? Because when I read the book, you're not selling anything, man, right? Like, so why did Ken decide to write this book? Because it doesn't seem self-serving. It really does seem, I want to give back. I want to share what I've learned.
You know, a long time ago, my daughter suffered a pretty devastating illness, and it was a pretty heavy 5 years for her mother and I. And you're sitting in waiting rooms and radiology rooms and doctor's offices, and you have a lot of time to think. So I started writing this very long letter to her about what I thought you should be chasing in life. And the words comfort, peace, and freedom just would not leave my brain. I could not get them out of my head. And so I just started thinking about, why aren't we teaching people, I don't care whether you're 15 or 50, to think about what you want your future to look like. I mean, only you know that. Only you know what your favorite house is, your favorite car, your favorite hobby, your favorite sport, your favorite charity, your favorite vacation would be. Why aren't we teaching people how to visualize this stuff and then go at it one piece at a time? Because once you know what your end game can look like, your perfect nirvana, if you will, there's a lot of ways to get there, college only being one of about a half a dozen. And we're so focused on trying to corral everybody through college that, if you don't do that, you're not going to amount to anything. Well, I'm here to tell you that not only in my case, but in many cases, nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, it's almost as if you were describing most of my friends' lives, right? One of the very first things I couldn't help but laugh at is when you've got this section where you say 5-gallon bucket head. I read it, and you talk about how valuable the 5-gallon bucket is. Now, listen, I'm a restaurant guy, right? So we call them pickle buckets, right? And we use them for everything, right? To stir stuff, save stuff, store stuff, free stuff. And you were describing the same thing, right? And as I was reading that, I was thinking, isn't it interesting how each industry has something that is so important and valuable to them that you're making a living off of this product or service? Talk a little bit about that, because I bring this up because the bucket, right, defines the kind of work you're suggesting is a good, healthy lifestyle.
Well, first off, I kind of analogize the bucket to your mindset and the emotions that you choose to put in every single day. And what's funny, you mentioned pickles. We actually buy used pickle buckets all the time.
Yeah,
and that's what we use to haul material in and out of the basement. We buy hundreds of them a year. And it's kind of a good day when brand new buckets show up with handles that work and everything else.
I can't tell you how funny that is.
For us, it's all about, you have a choice every single day what your mindset's going to be like, and you have a very small room in the top of your head to store all these emotions. So they are a choice. If you have frustration, you can't have joy. Okay, if you have anger, you can't have curiosity. I mean, there's a lot of these things that we have to recognize that are choices, and in order to get our mind right and figure out what we want our life to look like, which is really the point of the book. You have to be able to settle your brain to say, okay, I'm only going to allow in what I want to allow in, and I'm going to keep out that other stuff because it's just not functional for me. And
Ken, that is the core of the first chapter, which is comfort, peace, and freedom is a choice. And clearly you're setting the stage by those three things. How did you come to those three specific words? Because I find that to be intriguing to me.
They just kept showing up. I mean, it was like, okay, what should we all be chasing? What would be our perfect nirvana? And then I thought, well, we're not all going to go after, careers in hip hop or 15 cars or mega yachts or mansions. There's a lot of people that would look at it and say, man, if I could live at this level, if I could live with this picture, that would be really super cool. So if you describe that picture, it's what makes you comfortable, what brings you peace, and because of that, how do you feel a new sense of freedom? And that's the whole kind of crux of the book, is to get people to understand that they are 100% firmly in control of this. It's not this pine. I mean, I'm a ditch digger. I have no letters after my name. I have no formal training. I have no life coach training, nothing. But I do know a lot about mindset, because when you're using a jackhammer or you're carrying buckets of concrete up the stairs, you have a lot of time to think about what life is all about. And if you can control your future and control what you want that to look like, then that's the whole end game for most of us, and that's kind of the point of the book.
So Ken, you're talking a lot about reframing people's mindset, right, and having them actually define success for themselves. And you put a book out like this, and you had said earlier, you almost felt a responsibility to do this. But when you put a book out, you don't know if anybody's going to actually see it or read it. And fortunately for you, thousands upon thousands of people have. I'm curious what the feedback has been, because you're almost giving people permission to define success for themselves, which I think is so powerful.
Is so many people live these reactionary lives. Like, I'm going to react to all this stimulus that comes at me, whether it's my parents, my teachers, the economy, my boss, the weather. They live to be reactionary. And I'm saying, screw that. We need to live proactionary lives. We need to say, I'm not going to let life happen to me. I'm going to happen to my life. And so therefore, you kind of get rid of the if-then thing, okay? If I go to school and if I get good grades and if I get a scholarship and if I go to college and if I get a degree and if I get a job that pays well, I guess then I can start living my life. Well, that's completely backwards. Yeah. You need to start with what you want your then to look like now, and then find all of the many different ways to get there.
Yeah, and yet what you just described is what most people are told from the day they're born, right? Like, you just need to keep going through. You're going to go to college. You're going to get jobs. You're going to work for people. And when you're 65, 67 years old, you can finally retire, and then you can take that trip you've been pushing off for 30 years. And you're empowering other people to look at it a different way and say, live your life now. What is your nirvana, and how do you achieve that? And I love that about this book.
Well, if you think about it, we have so many buckets that we need to fill. We need to fill our spiritual bucket. We need to fill our health bucket, our sport bucket, our hobby bucket, our family bucket, our house bucket, our work bucket. And you got to fill all those things equally. I met a couple on a cruise one time. They were 78 years old, and they said this is the first vacation they've ever took. Wow. Well, I almost felt bad, because at that point I was on like my 25th vacation. Okay? And I was only 40 years old. Right. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, you better get busy living, or you're going to get busy doing something else. And for me, it was all about, no, I got to live for now. I got to fill all these buckets equally. And that's what this book is about. They say to whom much is given, much is expected. And so for me, this is my cathartic give back moment. I don't do this to make money. That's already been done. And I've been very blessed and I'm grateful for that. But now I have to teach others to shorten the learning curve to their entrepreneurship so they don't make a lot of the same time wasting mistakes that I made, because as we all know, time is absolutely your greatest asset.
Yeah. But we got to go to break, Ken. But before we do that, life is not all roses, right? I mean, you talk about in your book about your daughter. Just talk briefly about that, because all of us small business people, we go through these moments, right? Maybe not to the extent that you did with your daughter, but they slow us down, right? And so somehow you got to keep moving through these challenges. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I can tell you this, I was so fortunate that I decided a long time ago to make myself irrelevant to the daily workings of my company. And I don't mean irrelevant to the point where I don't matter. I mean irrelevant to the actual daily mechanics of making it work. So that when she got sick, I was able to take her all over the country and spend all the time I needed with her. And I left the business to the people that I had surrounded myself with, these mini entrepreneurs, or I should say entrepreneurs, that were like, Ken, go take care of your daughter. We got this. It's hard for me to even talk about today because it was a long time ago, but those emotions are still there. But the ability to give yourself the freedom to say, if something happens, okay, I need to be able to go take care of that. I don't care if it's taking care of a family member or if something happens in your personal life or whatever. You have to set yourself up and your company so that you can drive it from a vision standpoint, but not necessarily by holding onto the steering wheel.
And that is I want to stop right there, because when we get back, we're going to talk about, I'm going to tell everybody, pick up a box of crayons, and we're going to talk about, because it's my favorite part of the book, Ken. We're going to do that in just 1 second. But what you're describing really is, listen, you may start by carrying the bucket. You can continue to carry a bucket if you want to, because some of us just enjoy carrying that bucket, Ken. I know that's hard to believe, but you position the company that it's only necessary if you want to. That piece of it, I think, is really core to what you're talking about here.
It's exactly right. It's all of it, because we all want to be able to drive the vision of our company, not necessarily the vehicle. And I always say, if you can get yourself surrounded by a bunch of entrepreneurs that want to do for themselves first and you second, you're still going to win. The company's all going to win. I mean, this is an input-output scenario. So I look at it this way. If I can position myself to make that happen, they're going to help me drive this company way further than I can drive it myself, believe me.
Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, buddy, we're going to talk. Everybody get out some crayons. You're going to want to hear this next section. It is absolutely exceptional. I've probably read over 250 small business and business motivating and inspirational books. Ken, that chapter was the best, buddy. It is absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to talk about when we get back. You are listening to Local Biz Now. I am Joe Vagnone. If it's Friday morning, I'm sipping on a cup of black powder coffee because it's delicious. We'll be right back. Make sure you go and get this book. It is phenomenal. Blue Collar Cash by Ken Rusk. We're going to continue talking with Ken when we come right back. We are talking with Ben McDonald. He's the founder and managing partner of Destination Wealth Advisors. He's been here with us all month long. Ben, thank you for being here, buddy.
Thank you, Joe.
We also have live on the book and the Zoom, the author Ken Rusk of Blue Collar Cash. I saw him on an interview for Fox News. It was phenomenal. Ken, thank you for being here, buddy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So, Ken, I read the book. I've got a young man who's 22 years old. He is a foster child of mine. After I read the book, I called him and said, let's meet and bring some crayons with you. Let's talk about that, buddy. Your description of get out a box of 64 colored crayons and let's draw what you want your future to look like. I loved it. It was, talk about it and how you came to that, because it is phenomenal.
Well, I specifically talk about crayons because the last time you held a crayon in your hand, you were probably 5 years old. someone gave you a blank sheet of paper and they said, draw a rocket or a horse or a sunset or whatever. And you had to start from nothing other than what you had inside your brain and put that vision in from your brain onto that piece of paper. So I thought, well, let's force, I don't care whether you're 15 or 50, let's get a box of crayons out. You're going to open up the box and you're going to smell the crayons that you remember as a kid, and you're going to pick out some colors and you're going to start drawing. Doesn't matter if you draw well or not, because you're transferring a vision of what you want your life to look like from yourself, your brain, onto that piece of paper. And what's really important about that is I've interviewed some pretty powerful people in the brain business. And what they say is the more you see something, the more the neurotransmitters work faster and faster and faster in your brain, to the point where when it sees something enough that you really want, it makes a solid connection. And therefore, your brain almost acts like it already owns that thing. And so what happens next is your body almost involuntarily goes through motions, goes through the different things in order to attract itself to that eventuality, and you eventually get it. So you have to recognize how powerful your brain is and allow it to work for you. And one of the simple ways to do this is just to draw a great big picture of what you want your life to look like, hanging on the wall somewhere. See it once, 2, 3, 4 times a day, and allow your brain to attract itself to that eventual completion.
And so, Ken, and let me tell you something. It is that simple, right? I mean, get a piece of paper, get the crayons, and draw how and what you see you want your life to look like, right? I mean, you talked about big car, big house, And Ken, I can remember years ago, my dream was I wanted a house on the lake with a Cadillac in the garage. Here's the problem. That dream was too small. Right? And so what allows you to do is have this bigger dream. Yeah. And I love that you do that in a way which is with crayons. So it seems as though it's not so formal.
Right. Well, a 5-year-old's imagination is significantly stronger than us as adults, right? We almost restrict ourselves and dream a lot smaller, to your point.
Well, and Ken, I want you to talk about the fact that you do this with your employees, because that's what led me to want to do it with my foster son, right? Was say, hey, let's why don't you do this, and why don't you do this with your girlfriend, right? So talk about how you share this with others.
The very first time I did this was 36 years ago with a gentleman named Tim in our office. He's now our vice president. We went from 6 people to 200, and he's number 2 in our company now. He's the first one I ever did this with. We built this vision board, and you hear a lot about people saying, oh, vision boards, that's old news. I get it. Yeah, but try it. Do it right, hang it on the wall, and watch how powerful it is. So for me, it was all about getting in touch with what you just said. When you're 5 years old, you don't have the stresses of job, money, bills, all that kind of stuff that just fogs you down. So getting a box of crayons hopefully will, at least for a couple of weeks while you're doing this thing, allow you to build this puzzle from the square edges in, from your mind to the paper, and get you back to that really creative blank place that you were as a kid. Because if you dream big, these things will start to show themselves. It's an absolute fact that that's how your brain works. So allow the power of that to work, allow that attraction to work, allow what your brain sees it clearly finds a way to get to, and then put that on the wall. Did you know that only 1 out of 100 people, according to this Virginia Tech study, only 1 out of 100 people is willing to go that far? And yet it's free. You don't need any training. You need a box of crayons and a piece of cardboard. How much easier can it get? And yet, how powerful is that for you?
And Ken, I cannot stress enough that we want these listeners to be part of the 1, not the 100. Get the crayons, draw what it is you want. It's a lot of fun. It is a great exercise. Yes, Ben?
Yeah. So, Ken, I want to piggyback off that real quick before the show wraps up. You're talking about applicability here, and one of the issues with most business books is maybe great in concept.
Ben, we don't use big words like that on this show. Why do you got to use big words like that?
Issues? Is that?
That's 6 syllables. Hey, that's 6 syllables, guys. That's just 6 syllables.
Yep, that's right. All right. So, applicability. Yeah. Now you're going to start using that every show, Joe.
I might.
That'll be the new vocab word. But Ken, so most people will read a business book. love the concepts, and then it sits on the bookshelf, and they go on to the next book, right? And they never apply any of this. And you've taken this a step further and created a course so people don't just read your book, they actually make this apply to your life. So can you talk to us about what you're doing there?
Well, so many times I see people that have read a lot of books and they're up on the shelf, and you ask them, well, how did that one change your life? And they go, well, I read it, but I don't really know if it actually changed my life. I have the information in my mind, but I didn't really put it down or put it into practice. So I built this real simple 8-session course. It's 45 minutes a session. You could do it in 2 weeks, a week, a weekend, whatever. And it really talks about how you get the concepts from the book and actually change your life today. I mean, we need to do this now, not tomorrow, not someday, because someday never comes. So I put this together. It's literally $129. You get a free $25 book with it. And if you buy that, you can go on the site and you can donate one to your friend or family or loved one. Or if you don't have anybody, I'll donate one to someone from the underserved community to help them get out of the situation that they're in. So it's just a way of kind of giving back and getting the information out there.
Thanks, Ken. How can they do that, Ken? Where can they find that course?
You go to kenrusk.com and you'll see book or course. You can hit the buttons. It takes you right how to get there. You can fill it out. It's really easy to do.
Ken, thank you so much, buddy. I cannot thank you enough. We got to run. Ken Rusk, Blue Collar Cash. You need this book. You need that course. If it's Friday morning, say it, Ben. Say it.
Your business matters.
Thank you, Ken.